Welcome!
Hi!
Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts Lab. Woohoo!
All right, we're going to go through the instructions for this lab. It's going to be a virtual lab, so the procedure is going to be a little bit different, but we're going to take you through it so you're going to understand what you need to do. So get ready. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, to go through the procedure in the background. So first of all, the lab is called the Nuts and Bolts of Formulas. How can you model particles that are so small that you can't even see them? The background. Have you ever noticed dust particles floating through the air? You may think nothing can be smaller than a dust particle, but in fact, everything you see is made up of very tiny bits of matter that are many times smaller than dust particles. How can you describe something you cannot see? In this lab, you will model how you can describe extremely tiny particles of a substance that you cannot see with your naked eye. Now, we are going to be showing, Miss Williams and I are going to be showing you the procedure of what you are going to be doing with this particular model. We are going to have the materials and we will show you what you need to be observing.
So in our lab today, we have 4 materials. These materials are going to represent particles that we cannot see with our eyes. So first, we have a short bolt, this one here. We have a long bolt, a silver hex nut, and a gold hex nut. Okay, now we're going to be moving to the procedure. So make sure you have your document open and scroll down to where it says procedure. Number 1 says, examine the objects supplied by your teacher. Note how many types of objects you have. So take a moment to do that. Okay. Number 2 says, let me bring you over. Develop a model. Assign a symbol to each type of object. For example, a long bolt could be a capital L little b, and a hex nut could be capital H lowercase n. So, for example, for long bolts, you're going to put up in your materials your symbol. So, if you want it to be capital L little b, you'll put that next to long bolt, like Miss Tobias just did for us. You're then going to pick what symbol you want for short bolts, for silver hex nuts, and gold hex nuts. So, for example, if you want short bolts to be SB, that's how you'll do it. If you want silver hex nuts to be capital SHN, you could do that. You could also just do capital S, lowercase h, whatever you choose. Just make sure you're putting that there so you remember what your symbols are. And then lastly, you've got to do your gold hex nuts. You could do GH, whatever you choose. Again, make sure that it's capital for the first letter and lowercase for the second letter.
All right, now we're on step number 3. So we're going to assemble 3 different structures from the 4 different kinds of materials that you see here. The short, the long bolt, the silver hex nut, and then the gold hex nut. So there is an example here. It says, use the symbols that you assign in step number 2 to write a formula for each structure you construct. For example, if you assembled a structure out of 1 short bolt and 1 silver hex nut, this is what it would look like. So you're going to take the materials. So 1 short bolt and 1 silver hex nut would look like this. And then the formula would be, based on what you wrote at the top, would be
1 SB, 1 SH. So we will be doing 3 different structures with you. That was just an example. And when we make these structures, you're going to use the symbols you've already created at the top next to your materials. and you're going to see those lines that says 1, 2, and 3. You're going to pause the video once we make a structure, and then you're going to write your formula for that structure. You'll then play the video, see the second structure, write in your formula for the second one, and do the same for the third. Are we ready to make some structures?
Yes. All right, so the first structure looks like this. So it's one long bolt and one silver hex nut. So we're going to pause the video and go ahead and write your formula on blank number 1. So now we're going to make our second formula, or second model, sorry. So now I'm going to choose, I'm going to still keep my long bolt, but I want to do something different. So I'm going to add the gold hex nut.
All right, so now you're going to pause the video and write your formula for one long bolt and one gold hex nut.
Okay, for the third model, I'm going to add a little bit more. So I'm going to still use my long bolt, but I'm going to add the silver hex nut and the gold hex nut.
Ooh, it's a tricky one, Miss Tobias. You put 3 on this time.
Wow.
So this time, for number 3, you're going to write a formula for one long bolt, one silver hex nut, and one gold hex nut.
Remember those lowercase letters and capital letters. All right, so now we are on step number 5. So what we're going to do is we're going to build the following structure. We have one long bolt, 2 silver hex nuts, and 1 gold hex nut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that together for you. So we have one long bolt, we have 1 silver hex nut, we have 1 gold hex nut, and we have the second silver hex nut. Now, question that you should be thinking is are there any other ways that we could have assembled these materials? So let's give it a try. So what I could do is put the 2 silver on like this, and then have the gold there.
Now notice, we still have all of the same pieces. We still have one long bolt, 2 silver hex nuts, and 1 gold hex nut, but they're in a little bit different of an order. Do you think that there's another way that we could do it still? Maybe. All right, everybody, now that we are done with our procedure, we now have to finish up with analyzing and interpreting our data. So you're going to have 3 questions that you're going to answer. Number 1 says, even though you only have 4 different kinds of objects, the silver hex nut, the gold hex nut, the long bolt, and the short bolt, can you assemble more than 4 different kinds of structures out of those objects? Now, notice that it says explain your answer. We are not looking for just yes or no. We're looking for yes with an explanation or no with an explanation. So we're looking for a good, let's say 2 sentences for number 1. Now for number 1, we understand that you don't have these objects in front of you, and that's okay. You don't need them. We really just want you to think this through, okay? So just do your best, think it through, and provide an explanation for your answer. For number 2, it says, how can you assemble 2 different structures using 1 long bolt, 1 silver hex nut, and 1 gold hex nut? Now, we, again, know that you don't have these things in front of you, and some of us are visual learners. So, what I would suggest is taking a scratch piece of paper and drawing this out. Draw what it would look like before trying to explain it. Once you have it drawn out, or if you can do it without drawing it, write on number 2 how you would assemble these things. If you want, it would also be awesome if you could provide the formula for what those things would be. Lastly, number 3 says, develop a model. A drop of pure water is made up of two substances. One substance is called hydrogen. The second substance is called oxygen. The smallest particles of water found in nature are made up of 2 parts of hydrogen and 1 part of oxygen. Write a formula for the smallest particle of water. Now here's a hint. You want to start by writing your symbols for hydrogen and oxygen, just like we did for our long bolt, short bolt, gold, and silver hex nuts. So pick a symbol for hydrogen and oxygen, and then write a formula for something that is made up of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. Again, if you don't know, I still want you to give it a try. Do your best. All right. Awesome.
All right, you guys, that concludes our nuts and bolts labs. Good luck, have fun with this, and we can't wait to see your results.
Woohoo, go science.
All right.
Bye.